Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP22 playthrough of the New York Yankees. We are ready to begin the 2022 season with our revamped roster and lineup. Well, we've been mediocre through the early stages of this new season. You can see we're tied for fourth, which is also last in the AL East with the Baltimore Orioles, but only 2.5 games out. Very compressed division in terms of the standing, but right now we are looking up at Toronto, Tampa, and Boston. The hope is certainly for that to change in the coming weeks. Well, we've simmed another month and the results have not been pretty. We're 20-28, alone in last place now, in 12 games behind the Blue Jays. Really disappointing season so far. You can see we're also 7 out of the wild card. So really has been shocking how poorly this team has played. Thought we would do a lot better. You can see offensively, very mediocre. The only thing we're good in is hitting home runs and striking out, despite the changes that we've tried to make. And then our pitching has been mediocre also, really not great in anything except striking out people. We're very good in and good in not allowing a lot of walks. But it has been a really disappointing season so far for these Yankees. We've got plenty of time to turn it around, and I think we do have plenty of talent on the team. Looking offensively, you can see Bellinger is off to a nice start with us in center field. 16 homers, 27 ribbies, only batting .228 though, which is disappointing, but his slugging percentage of .539. Definitely overall playing better than he had the last couple years with the Dodgers, so that's positive. And then Aaron Judge, who we just signed to the long-term contract, is having a nice season. Almonte has had a decent amount of action, is our kind of fourth outfielder. But a few guys have been really disappointing. David Fletcher, who's come in and started at second base. We had hoped he would be a utility infielder, but you can see here with his 183 at-bats, he's playing a lot more than Gleyber Torres, who we thought would become our second baseman, but Boone has made a different decision for us. And Giancarlo Stanton, disappointing season so far, just a .234 batting average in a WAR of only 0.2. So, definitely have the potential to improve offensively. Not going to throw in the towel yet. We are still in the early stages of this season, but it has certainly not been as good as we would have hoped. And then when we look at the pitching staff, which we thought would be a big strength for us, Rodon and Cole are our top two pitchers. Both have, WARs of over 1 already. In Rodon's case, 1.2. So those two are doing the job at the top of the rotation, and Corey Kluber also pitching well. But Severino has been somewhat disappointing. You can see 3-6 with a 6.14 ERA. Definitely not optimal. And then Jordan Montgomery has really regressed so far this year. 2-5 with a 4.85 ERA. ERA plus 98, FIP minus though 122. So has certainly not been great. Hopefully the pitching will get itself straightened out and the bats will start working better, and we will improve in the coming month. Well, we've been playing somewhat better over the past month. You can see we've gotten to 35 and 39, although we are only 4-6 in our last 10. But we've gotten out of last place, got some space between us and the Orioles now, but need to kind of get a push to hopefully get back to 500 before the All-Star break. We're 5.5 out of the wild card, so certainly in contention, but the team is not playing as well as we would have hoped. Well, we've reached almost the midway point of the season. You can see we're 38 and 42, 8.5 games back. Steinbrenner is angry with our team's performance, as I am. But you can see that we have made progress in our other goals. We've improved our batting average to 9th from 13th. We've got an extension for Jake Lamb. And we've also increased attendance since we lowered the ticket prices significantly when we kind of made the mistake of having too high ticket prices for the season tickets. So from that perspective, we're doing okay, but we've got to start playing better as we get closer to the All-Star break and the amateur draft. Well, we are at the All-Star break, actually coming out of the All-Star break, 43 and 46, 11 and a half games back. So definitely has been a disappointing season. We're 6 out of the wild card, so we are still absolutely in the playoff hunt, but has not been going as well as we would have hoped. You can see going through the AL leaders over here, not too much for our team, although Rodon and Cole are first and third in the league in strikeouts, and they're 1 and 2 at this point in pitcher WAR. You can see Cole is 9 and 4 with a 3.19 ERA. Rodon 6 and 5, but a strong 3.27 ERA and 156 strikeouts in just 118 innings. So the top of the rotation has been doing what we had hoped they would do. The issue is the rest of the team is not doing all that great. You can see that the pitching has improved. We are generally, one of the better teams in the league in several pitching categories. But the offense is still very weak. Batting average, we're 8th, which is an improvement. But these are the Bronx Bombers. We should be scoring more runs than we have. You can see that the performance has improved recently, though. We were 9 and 11 in April and 11 and 17 in May. June and July, we've been over 500 in both months. So that gives us some hope that we just got off to a bit of a slow start, but we're actually better than we appear to be. And if we go into the expanded standings, you can see we've actually outperformed by 2 games when you look at our run differential, which is really disappointing. But the hope is that run differential improves materially in the coming weeks. Well, in a sign that it may not be our season, a few days ago, coming out of the trade deadline, we put Giancarlo Stanton on the trade block. You can see he's had a pretty mediocre season for us. 22 homers, which is great, but only 43 runs batted in. OPS plus of 115, WRC plus of 119, which are both good, not great, not $30 million a year player type good. And given that he's fragile and he has that massive contract, we were thinking about possibly trying to trade him to open up some money for next season and beyond to improve the team this offseason, but now he's out for about 4 months. So that's going to damage our chances of being able to win this season, and also means we're probably not going to be able to get much of anything for him now. It was always going to be a difficult trade given his age and the size of the contract and the fact that he is relatively injury prone at this point. And this latest injury isn't going to make it any easier for us to ship him off somewhere eventually. Well, we've made it past the trade deadline and into August, and the season remains disappointing. 13 games out in the East. Clearly, it's very unlikely that we're going to overcome 3 teams that are, at the very least, 8 games in front of us at this point. And even for the wild card, we're 9 out. So it's been really disappointing. We did make one minor trade as we got close to the trade deadline. Kind of just a recognition of the situation that we're in. St. Louis was looking for Corey Kluber from us, who's in the last year of his contract. You can see 36 years old, 5.26 ERA this year. So we got a minor league closer with a little bit of potential, as well as a young minor league catcher. Probably neither turns into much of anything, but it did save a little money for us the rest of the way, and allow us to bring up some younger players from AAA to the major league team. Well, the season has gone from bad to worse. Just found out that Carlos Rodon out for 10 months with a stretched elbow ligament, so his season is done. We are 56 and 68, 16 and a half games out. Clearly, our season is done. It's just a matter of playing out the string. Hopefully, can make things a little bit some more respectable, but it has been an incredibly disappointing first season. Lone bright spot, Cody Bellinger, you can see, is now second in the AL in home runs, is our new center fielder. Other than that, Rodon was leading the league in strikeouts. He'll presumably be passed by probably Robbie Ray and Christian Javier. In pitcher WAR, Rodon finished with 5, so he'll be really good. Cole, 12 and 6, 3.14 ERA, 185 strikeouts in 146 innings. So our 1-2 punch certainly did the job on the mound, but the rest of the team has been quite disappointing. Well, our first regular season is mercifully over. Extremely disappointing with a 76 and 86 record, 22 games out of the division, and 13 games out of the wild card. Just a very disappointing season. You can see Bellinger ended up third in the AL in home runs with 40. Somewhat of a bounce back season from him. Still not what it looked like he was going to be 4 or 5 years ago, but we may re-up with him in arbitration and talk about a long-term contract with him. The pitching side, Cole ended up having a fantastic season. You can see here he led the league in ERA, tied for the league lead in wins, second in strikeouts, and ended up leading the league in pitcher WAR. So a pretty good chance that Cole will win the Cy Young Award, which will be kind of the lone bright spot in this season for us. Looking at our team's statistics, our offense was pretty awful in just about everything. Only thing we were somewhat good in is strikeouts, which makes me feel good because we did try to get more contact hitters, but we improved our batting average only up to 11th. So clear that the offense is what needs some work. Pitching, generally in the top half of the league in almost every pitching category. So that was positive for us. You can see here never really rebounded from that slow start in April and May. Had a winning month in June, then July and August ended up being weak, and then September, once it really didn't matter, we were pretty good. And then October we were 500 once we were obviously long eliminated. Looking at our offense, as I mentioned, Bellinger had a decent season for us in center field, a 4.4 WAR. Aaron Judge, solid season in right field, a WAR of 3.3 is probably a little disappointing for him, but a second consecutive season where he was healthy and in the lineup just about every day. You can see his OPS 827, very solid. And then Abraham Almonte, who we signed this year for our fourth outfielder, had a nice solid season for us. Fletcher was good at second. LeMahieu was okay at first. Stanton, a injury-shortened season. May look to deal him in the off-season. We had talked about doing it a year ago and didn't pull the trigger. Urshela, Andujar, and Torres all were a little bit better than replacement level, but not all that exciting. Vasquez in his first season with us, a little positive in terms of his WAR, which means he was likely good defensively, but definitely not the season we had hoped for. Gregorius was a big problem for us. We thought he would help us stabilize that shortstop position, and he did to some extent, but with the 203 batting average, 576 OPS in a WAR of almost -1, just not very good. And then Jake Lamb, who was our backup first baseman, utility infielder, can see just a brutal season. He was upset at not being a starter, which probably didn't help, but a 131 batting average, only 4 home runs, and a -1 WAR. So definitely a lot for us to think about on the offensive side. We did bring up Pavin Smith towards the end of the year, and he was respectable in his playing time there. So he will perhaps be someone who we can give more playing time to next season as we try to turn things around. Turning to the pitching staff, as you already know, Cole, a great season. Rodon pitched well before he got hurt. Jordan Montgomery kind of bounced back from a slow start. The record only 9-13, but a 4.24 ERA, which was a 1.12 ERA plus and a 90 FIP minus. So still a nice, respectable season from him. Looking in more specifically at Cole for more than a respectable season, you can see that 3.17 ERA led to a 1.50 ERA plus, 68 FIP minus. Just a really strong season for him. As I said, I think there's a pretty good chance that he will win the Cy Young Award. Strikeouts per 9 down a little bit, but still just an excellent season for us and him. Looking at the rest of the pitching staff, Severino did okay. We've got a big option for him next season. We'll have to decide whether it's worth it or not. He was healthy, which was positive. 8-17 record, not good. In 5.19 ERA, not good. But you can see that he still overall generated a WAR of almost 2. Lasaiga is the closer, 30 saves, 2.65 ERA, 1.1 WAR. Kluber, mentioned we traded him away. Ridings, injured now, but we brought him up from Scranton, and he did a decent job for us. May have a future with the big team. Robert Broom, another rookie we brought up this year, who did a solid job for us in 12 games, 18 1/3 innings pitched. And also brought up Devi Garcia right at the end of the year. Didn't get to play too much for us. Tyone, disappointing, 5-10, 5.47 ERA. Probably will be moving on from him shortly. And then, some of the guys who did a good job for us last year, like Clay Holmes, after he came over from the Pirates, really struggled this season. Matt Strahm, who we brought over from San Diego, was also very disappointing. Clark Schmidt had a rough season for us in very limited playing time when we brought him up near the end. Similar story with Michael King. Came up at the end of the season when rosters got larger and we had some injuries, and definitely did not impress. And then Chapman, our $16 million reliever, will be moving on from him. He's been supplanted in the closer role, which he's been unhappy about, and we're pretty unhappy too. Definitely a very disappointing season. We will be back in our next episode with our plan as to how we're going to make things better in 2023. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you had a good day. Hope you're having a good day. And let's all hope that the Yankees next season is better than this one, because replacing Brian Cashman with me is looking like a mediocre decision at best so far.